Hey everyone, welcome to my channel, or welcome back. So it has been a minute. I am tentatively back. I'm back in my apartment. I went back to campus in person this week, so there's been a lot of adjustment. I had my schedule all sort of figured out, and then I've been readjusting to actually having to commute to campus again this week, so there's been a lot going on, but I'm hoping that I'll be a little bit more consistent from here on out. Although I said that last semester too, and it didn't quite end up working out like that, so I appreciate you guys for bearing with me. So this is my February update for my Pan That palette, although if I do have space on my phone after this, I probably will be filming Partners in Cream too, so if you see the same face, hair, whatever, we can't waste a good hair day, so that would be why. So I've been working on 3 mini palettes this year with the intention of finishing as much of them as possible, and it's been a really good month. I finished my first ever pan of eyeshadow, I finished an entire palette, and I've got some really good pan expansion on the rest. So let's start off with my focus palette. So I've been mainly trying to finish all the shimmers in my Pat McGrath Mini Sublime. So as of the last update, I had 3 pans on this, and now I'm down to 2 because I actually did repress things. Well, I repressed 1 shade. So this is what my palette is looking like now, and as you guys can see, I do have, at least I think, a decent amount of progress, especially on Gold Nectar right here. So I'm going to start off with Sinful over here as always, and I've used this one 11 times. I mainly use this one as an accent shade or an inner corner highlight, so it's not really ever the focus of a look or used all over the lid. So progress on this one is just kind of slow and steady, and I'm totally fine with that. I just want to keep on using it, and then hopefully I'll be able to finish it before the end of the year. So, but I do think with this one, I have used it 11 times if I didn't say that already. And I feel like these sides are getting a little bit more sloped and a little bit less steep. So I feel like there is definitely some progress, although definitely more on the slow and steady side of things. Now Gold Nectar, this is the one that I did not expect to make as much progress on, but then I did. I know I said I was going to leave it alone as of the last update, and then I think because this is such a soft, flaky formula, every single time I use it, I see a good amount of pan expansion, so that kind of, especially in the first couple weeks since the last update, that really just kind of motivated me to continue reaching for this one. So I've used this one 11 times, including today. I know I did a non-monochromatic look, I was surprised too, but I'm feeling really good about the way this one is going. I feel like based on the change since the last update, I could have side pan on this one by the next update and start like clearing up this bottom corner. Obviously I did end up repressing Corruption. I don't think this one is going to repress super well because it's a very sort of loosely packed, very flaky formula, whereas this is more of like a traditional powder. So I'm just sort of like chipping away at this one, and I feel like finishing up this one within the next couple months is definitely something that's doable. Moving on to Sextrovert over here, I kind of was hoping to reach for this one more, and then I ended up just sort of going for Gold Nectar. I did usually use the two of them together. I like this one in the outer sort of half of the lid to add a little bit of extra dimension and depth, but I wasn't really reaching for it as an all-over lid shade. I did still manage to use Sextrovert 8 times, but not as many uses as I thought, and not as much change as I expected, although I feel like there is, you know, a little bit more of a dip forming there. I've said before I like this one, and I know it's something that I'll get a lot more use out of. This is a shade that I use pretty consistently, and it works really well for like an easy one and done sort of lid shade. So I think definitely as I head into more like midterm season and crunch time for a lot of different things, I think I'll be reaching for this one a lot more. So I've just been sort of reaching for the shades that I can use in more complicated looks for now, knowing that that won't necessarily be a reality for the rest of the semester. Plus, if I'm doing like professional things over the summer, who knows, this will be like a good shade for that, so I'm not really in any like rush on that one. And then Illicit, I have actually used a couple times. I've been getting more into doing like winged liner with an eyeshadow because it gives me a little bit more control, so I have used Illicit for that a couple of times. It's definitely a very messy and kind of powdery shade. I get a lot of fallout, so I'm not like obsessed with doing that, but it's been kind of fun to play around with. So I've actually used Illicit more than expected. I've used it 3 times, and I feel like it looks a little bit more like it's got more of a disturbance, but not anything too crazy. I really don't care about the shade. I just use it occasionally, especially if I'm traveling, but it's definitely not like a focus. I care a lot more about the shimmers. And then last but not least, Corruption. I will throw a photo on screen of what this looked like before I repressed it, but this one I was definitely finding it was getting pretty annoying to get my brush in there. It's not a super soft formula, so I was really kind of having to dig in there. I don't know if it's just because I've had this palette for a while, if the formula is starting to change, or if this was always like this and I hadn't experienced the joy of indie shadows before. And like, I don't know, I'm not sure if my standards were lower or if the formula is changing. I will say repressing this definitely did change the formula. I feel like the green base is a lot more visible on this and it's a little bit more sheer, but I feel like that's not a bad thing. I feel like that will just sort of help me get through it a little bit faster because I have to pick up so much more to get sort of an opaque coverage. So I've used Corruption 10 times since the last update, and yeah, I will bring this a little closer. You can see I think I've used a decent amount of it, but I don't think I'm anywhere near pan. So we'll just kind of see how this one goes. I think this will be good for, you know, around Valentine's Day, and this also is a really nice sort of one and done shade with something in the crease. So I think I'll continue to reach for it often and get a good amount of use on it that way. So that is my focus palette. Let's talk about my mini retro. So this one, I was sort of surprised by how much change I saw on this one. I was kind of not expecting to make as much progress on this one as I ended up, but as of the last update, I had 2 pans in this one, and now I have 2 pans and a completely empty pan. So as you guys can see, I have managed to fully finish off Pixie. I did manage to hit my goal of hitting pan on Vintage Taupe over here, and I did not manage to hit pan on Galaxia, although I'm very, very close. I forgot how hard it is to pan like sort of glittery topper shades, so I think we're just going to carry over trying to hit pan on Galaxia on this one. So starting off with Galaxia over here, I've used this one 9 times since the last update. It's got a really nice sort of pinkish blue sparkle to it that has worked really well with this palette as well as with my Pan Those eyeshadows. I got a bunch of bluish purples, so this has been fun to sort of top those, and I've gotten a decent amount of use out of it that way. I feel like I'm right on pan, but I'm not quite there yet, so hopefully by the next month that'll actually happen. I feel like there's been a little bit of pan expansion on Industrial. I've only used this once, which generally I really do like the shade. Again, this is a great one and done sort of shade with like these 2 in the crease, so I think especially as things get a little bit more hectic and I head into midterm season more proper, I think that this one will get a lot more use. It's really good. I feel like it really suits the mood of like February and March gloom. I live on the East Coast, so it's always just sort of gray and gloomy for most of February and March too, so I think I'll get a lot more use out of this in the coming months. 60s I only used 3 times. I haven't gotten a ton of use out of this. I think I'm gonna definitely want to try this as an all over lid shade with mini retro in the crease and just sort of see how that works. I definitely am not seeing a ton of change here. These are very hard pressed mattes, and they're also fairly pigmented, so I find I don't need a ton to get the intensity that I'm going for. I think I still have a couple more months before I hit pan on this, but I think if I could make that happen before the end of the semester, I think that would be appropriate, all things considered. I did manage to hit pan on Vintage Taupe here. This took me way longer than I thought it was going to. These pans are not actually that deep, but I find Natasha's formula is fairly firmly pressed in there, so this did take me quite some time. Generally, I don't build this one up too much. I usually am using this lightly as a transition shade, but I did manage to hit pan on it, and that pan has expanded a reasonable amount. So it took me 10 uses to hit pan on Vintage Taupe, and then I've used it an additional 9 times since then for 19 uses total, so this has been really good. Also with my Pan Those eyeshadows as a transition shade for layering some purples on top of, so I've been using this quite a bit this way. And then I think the elephant in the room is the shade Pixie, which is completely finished. Now I used this one a total of 20 times to completely finish it. I didn't manage to finish this as an eyeshadow. I started using it and multitasking it as a glowy blush. I heard people talk about the phenomenon of certain colors making you look like you have pink eye, and I hadn't really experienced it until Pixie, and then I was using this and I was trying to figure out why I didn't quite love how my makeup looked whenever I wore this, and I realized that it's because this shade kind of makes me look like I've been crying or rubbing my eyes or like I have a cold. It just makes my eyes look kind of inflamed. I decided to stop using it on my eyes and start trying to use it as a glowy blush. It is definitely a little bit more glowy than I would like for a blush, but it did work pretty well with that, especially when I was away from home and I only had a couple of blushes with me that sort of fit that more neutral pink niche that I was looking for, especially with my last quad of Pan Those eyeshadows. So I did manage to finish this up completely, and I'm very happy to kind of have it out of my collection. I like the idea of it, but it just didn't end up looking super great on me. And then last but not least, I feel like I was really excited about this for like a week or 2 after I finished it. And then because it's been about a month since I actually finished this, the excitement has kind of worn off, but I feel like just looking at this, I think we all knew this was going to happen, and I have completely finished off my Alchemist palette. Look at all those empty pans. As of the last update, the only shade that I had remaining on this one was the shade Ultraviolet, which I was sort of chipping away at. This had a very thin layer around the center, so every time I used it, I would use up quite a bit, and then there was just a little bit left around the sides to scrape out. So I used this one an additional 8 times, and as you can see, entirely finished. So I'm really happy about that. The product around this, because I repressed it a couple times, was very, very thin in the center and more pushed up around the sides. So every time I put my brush in there, I used up quite a bit. I also tend to be I like being glowy, so I tend to go a little bit more ham with the highlighter than most people do, so it didn't take me super long to finish this. So I definitely finished this one way ahead of schedule, and I'm so happy to have this finished. I did really enjoy using it and playing around with it, but I think it showed me that colorful highlights, despite the fact that I'm wearing a purple highlight today, colorful highlights are not necessarily something that I need to own because I just am not likely to use them. I will say I'm wearing Becca's Prismatic Amethyst today. I don't know if you can tell. That would be the exception. I do actually like that because it's a little bit more subtle, but in terms of how likely I am to wear a green highlighter or a blue highlighter, definitely not so much. So even though I had fun using this and genuinely did enjoy getting to play around with it, I am really happy to have it finished. I just felt like it was something that I bought mainly because it was on sale and because I generally have had pretty good experiences with the KVD brand, maybe not KVD herself, but the brand itself I found was pretty good. So this went on sale and I bought it, and then I decided, you know what, I bought it, I should try to finish it. So I did. Having this finished up has like more than halved my highlighter collection. Also, to the person who asked me for the inventory, I have not forgotten. It's coming. I am so sorry. I'm a mess. But that will be coming up by the end of the month. It is definitely very much on my radar to film. So having said that, that'll be a really good update for that, especially in the highlighter category, which I have talked about frequently, how that's a problem category for me, but I think I realized that I am just, you know, with the exception of the highlighter that I'm wearing today, I am definitely just like a champagne highlighter girl, and that is all that I need. Let's talk about my goals for the next update. So starting off with my mini sublime, I've got a couple of things that I want to do with this. I would like to basically start working towards side pan and start clearing out the bottom portion of Gold Nectar right here. I think it's very doable. I think once I can get the bottom section of this cleared out, I feel like it will only take me a couple more months of semi-consistent use to completely finish that one up. And I like golds, but I don't like them on me all the time. I think I've realized I'm more of like a copper or a bronze or a rose gold person. Proper golds are not the most flattering on me, so even though I do like this one, it's definitely not a color that I feel like I need in my collection, so I think I'm going to be honing in on trying to finish this one up, especially because it's good for more face-to-face stuff where I do want to look, you know, I like wearing makeup and I like being colorful, but I don't want to be like too out there, you know? So that is definitely the big goal for the next one, is just to hit side pan and maybe if I can start clearing things out. So I think that's very achievable. I would also like to re-hit pan on Corruption. I honestly have no idea how close I am. I can tell that I made like a little bit of a dip at the center, but I think it could take a while, so we'll just kind of like see how that one goes. And again, I think this one I want to finish first, this one definitely second, so that I feel like is, you know, also doable. And I just want to see more of like a dip on Sextrovert. I know I was thinking I could maybe hit pan on that by March. I don't think that's going to happen. I'm thinking April, May now, but I'm not super concerned about it, so I kind of would like to finish these ones up first, especially because I do have dupes for those in my collection. This one is a little bit more unique, not that it's, you know, crazy out there. I do definitely have plenty of bronzes and taupes, but yeah, I kind of would like to focus on finishing up Corruption and Gold Nectar first. For my mini retro, I do want to hit pan on Galaxia. I am super close, so I think over the next couple of weeks, if I reach into this a few times a week, I think that could definitely happen. I would like to just work on pan expansion for everything else, and I would just like to use Industrial and 60s more, and I definitely want to see more of like a focus dip happening on 60s here. So that is what I'm thinking with this one, and I am not going to be rolling anything in to replace my KVD Alchemist palette. I sort of said that once I had that one finished, I just wanted to have it finished and call it good. So we're gonna stick with that, and now I'm just down to 2 eyeshadow palettes. So that feels really good. I am very happy with how this is going and definitely feeling a lot more motivated and positive about this project compared to how I was feeling about my palette selection last year. So I think that is pretty much going to wrap it up for this one. If you're doing this project, let me know down below how yours is going, what you've chosen, and if you haven't already subscribed and you want to see more of my face, I upload sometimes new beauty videos, so if that sounds interesting, feel free to subscribe. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to give it a like, and hopefully I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!